My name is Olivia Wilde, and I am an illustrator and children's book author. I'm 50 years old, and life has taken me on a roller coaster ride I never expected. Kevin and Julie were my childhood friends, people I trusted with everything. But now, as I look back, I realize how wrong I was to ever trust them. What started as a simple misunderstanding spiraled into a betrayal so deep, it turned my world upside down. It all started about 25 years ago when Kevin and I started dating. We had known each other since high school, and after graduation, we both went to different colleges. It was a surprise to me when Kevin confessed his feelings. I had always thought he was more interested in Julie, but he was sincere. He told me that he loved me, and for some reason, I believed him. Julie had always been a little bit of a troublemaker, especially when it came to relationships. She had a reputation for stealing other people's boyfriends, only to toss them aside once they were obsessed with her. But despite her flaws, Julie was still one of my closest friends. Kevin and I started dating, and we even married at 23, thinking we would spend the rest of our lives together. Years went by, and we were happy. We didn't have children. Both Kevin and I agreed that we loved our freedom too much to be tied down by the responsibilities of raising kids. We traveled, enjoyed life, and occasionally visited Julie, who was living a life of her own with her husband, Paul. Julie had gotten married to Paul, a professional who worked for a top-tier company. They had a pretty typical life, until things started to change. It happened when Julie announced she was pregnant. Suddenly, Kevin, who had always been a carefree, easygoing person, changed. He started to spend more and more time with Julie. He quit smoking because Julie couldn't stand the smell. He used his vacation days to drive her to doctor's appointments. I had a strange feeling about it, but I didn't say anything at first. I thought maybe I was overreacting. But then things started to feel off. When Julie gave birth to Lauren, things got even worse. Kevin, who was never overly interested in children, suddenly became obsessed with spending time with Julie and her newborn. It didn't seem right to me. We argued about it countless times. I told Kevin that it was disrespectful to Paul for him to be so involved with Julie, but Kevin didn't see it that way. He just got angry and defensive. Our arguments grew more frequent, and it felt like something was changing between us. The final straw came when Lauren had her graduation ceremony. Kevin suddenly decided he needed to attend, without even asking me first. I couldn't believe it. It was just a kindergarten graduation, and Kevin wasn't even her biological father. He wasn't even married to Julie anymore. I asked him why he had to go, and his response shocked me. He said Julie needed him, that it was important for him to be there for her. I was furious. I told him it was disrespectful to Paul, but Kevin just snapped back at me. He didn't care. In fact, he seemed to enjoy pushing me away. From that day on, he started spending more time with Julie and Lauren. It was as if I no longer mattered. Then, something happened that changed everything. One night, while Kevin and Julie were out, Paul came to visit me. He had discovered something that I had suspected for months. He showed me the GPS history from Julie's car. It was clear. Julie and Kevin were spending 3 nights a week at a hotel together. It was obvious now. They were having an affair. I didn't know what to do with this information. I felt betrayed, not only by Kevin but by Julie as well. After everything we had been through, how could they do this to us? Paul and I decided to take revenge. We didn't know how, but we both agreed we couldn't just let them get away with this. The first step was for me to start increasing my income. Since I had been taking care of Lauren and doing the housework, my earnings had decreased significantly. But now, I had a new goal. I had to make sure that when it came time to act, I would be financially independent. Paul started working from home, and whenever Kevin and Julie were out, he would bring Lauren to me. We spent time together, planning, gathering evidence, and preparing for the moment when we could expose their betrayal. Months went by. We gathered evidence, kept tabs on their movements, and waited for the right moment. But then something unexpected happened. I was diagnosed with a serious illness. The doctors told me I would need long-term hospitalization. This wasn't part of the plan, but I knew I couldn't back out now. I had to see it through. I informed Paul, and we made arrangements to transfer me to a different hospital. Julie and Kevin had no idea. Paul and I continued to gather evidence, all while I focused on my recovery. My condition was serious, and it was clear I wouldn't be able to work at full capacity for a while. But I couldn't let Kevin and Julie get away with what they had done. Then one day, just after I was transferred to my new hospital, Kevin showed up. I hadn't seen him in weeks, and when he walked into the room, it felt like a stranger had entered. He handed me a divorce lawyer's business card. No questions about how I was doing, no concern for my health. Just the business card and a cold, "Take care." It was as if he had been waiting for this moment, as if he had planned this all along. I was shocked, but I didn't show it. I replied casually, "Fine. Let's divorce then." Kevin seemed surprised at my calmness. He looked at Julie, who was standing next to him, and they both exchanged smiles. Kevin then mentioned that I would receive $2,000 a month as alimony. I was stunned by the coldness of it all. He didn't care about me. He never had. As soon as the divorce papers were signed, I knew it was time to take action. I began my revenge. The first step was to make sure that Kevin and Julie felt the consequences of their actions. I contacted my lawyer and informed them that they would handle all communication from now on. I also made plans to move all of my belongings out of the house. It was time for a clean break. Soon, Kevin called me in a panic. Apparently, he had forgotten that I owned the house we had been living in. It was a workspace I had rented when I started my freelance career. Kevin had never paid the rent or utilities, but he seemed to think he could stay there after the divorce. I informed him that I had already canceled the lease. It was my house, and I didn't want him or Julie anywhere near it. The house was sold, and they had no place to go. Kevin called me repeatedly, demanding money and asking for help. He was in trouble now, but I couldn't care less. I had nothing to offer him anymore. I had already given him everything, my trust, my love, and my loyalty. But in return, I had been betrayed. He was on his own now. Months passed and I continued to recover in the hospital. But the more I thought about everything, the more I realized how much I had underestimated the situation. I had been living in denial for too long. Kevin and Julie were truly selfish, and they had no remorse for what they had done. But I would make them regret it. A few months after my transfer, I visited Kevin's parents. I had always had a good relationship with them, but I needed to confront them. When I arrived, Kevin and Julie were there, both acting as if nothing had happened. Kevin tried to explain away his actions, but his father wasn't having it. He was furious with him. Julie, on the other hand, was acting like she hadn't done anything wrong. She thought she could just waltz in and act like nothing had changed. But Lauren, who had been quiet until now, stood up and spoke. She looked at Julie and said, "You're not my mother. I don't care what you say." It was a moment of clarity for me. Lauren had seen through it all. She was strong, and she was choosing to be with me. That day, I realized that I had the support I needed to move on. Lauren and I were a family now, and as for Kevin and Julie, they would have to live with the consequences of their actions. It wasn't over for them. Not by a long shot. A few months later, I received a call from Paul. He had been thinking about the future, and he asked me if I would consider remarriage. I hadn't been sure about my feelings for him at first, but now, as I thought about it, I realized that I might be ready for a new chapter in my life. I told Paul I wasn't sure yet, but I was willing to see where things went. As I look back on everything, I'm grateful for the strength I've found. I'm recovering from my illness, and my children's books are doing better than ever. I'm not letting Kevin or Julie control my life anymore. The future is bright, and I'm ready to embrace